Welcome to another live broadcast. I don't know if it just went live or what the deal was. Aloha, everyone. Welcome to another live broadcast of No More Shame Wednesdays. And for our UK people, it is 2 or 3 in the morning on Thursdays, so this happens to be a No More Shame Thursday for you. I'm Athena Moberg, and this is Bobby Parrish.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
So, okay, as you know, if you've been keeping up with us at all on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, or whatever, we usually have a weekly sex abuse chat every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, which was started by our dear friend Rachel Thompson and Bobby Parrish. And it is a Twitter chat that everybody participates in by using the hashtag or # or tic-tac-toe sign, sex abuse chat, no spaces. So if you're ever curious about what it is we're referring to when we say, oh yeah, yesterday in chat, please come by and participate. You're welcome to just watch, which is fondly called lurking. I know it's a weird word, but it's called lurking if you're just watching the Twitter feed and you're not participating. So our topic last night during chat was shame. And it was, Bobby, how crazy and fast-moving was our talk last night?
It was so hard to keep up with. Just, scrolling across the screen so fast, I kept having to put pause so I could stop and read everything. And not just fast, but I know for some people it was hard. It is a very hard topic to talk about. Very hard.
It is. I know we were discussing this just briefly last week. That I know I mentioned Brené Brown. She's one of my heroes. She's a speaker, and most importantly, she is a researcher. The topic of her research is shame. And turns out 100% of the population actually experiences shame, but no one talks about it. That's why it's called shame. It's very shameful. It's very embarrassing, humiliating. And we're going to delve just a little bit tonight into the topic of shame in keeping with our launch into the inaugural first annual No More Shame November.
Yay!
Yay! Oh, the crowd goes wild. And the whole purpose of No More Shame November, if this is a new concept to you and you haven't heard us talk about it because you haven't watched any of our previous episodes, No More Shame November is every single day of the month we are going to be posting survivors' stories, people who have survived abuse, true stories, essays, poetry. We're going to have links. We're going to have all kinds of valuable resources on how to diminish shame and steps you can take in your life to live what Brené Brown would call a wholehearted life, or a life that has less shame attached to it. Therefore, you're going to be more confident.
That's right.
That is what everyone really, I think, is going for, is that type of a wholehearted life that is less shame, more confidence, and that is why Bobby and I are here. We are trauma recovery coaches, and we specifically work with people that have survived trauma. And abuse is a form of trauma. We have a lot of survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and most recently we have our dear friend Fina Bianco, who is the author of a book called The House on Sunset. She has domestic violence chat. Many of the domestic violence chat participants are sort of coming over and introducing themselves, and our community that is committed to kicking shame to the curb is growing. So welcome to you if you are tuning in from Stitcher or iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, and if you're finding us on your Roku device, then that's amazing. And we're just wanting to personally welcome you and remind you that each episode of our No More Shame broadcast comes with a complimentary downloadable PDF resource that specifically lines up with the topic that we discuss that week. The topic this week is shame, and all you have to do is log on to nomoreshameproject.com, and there is a button at the top of the website that says downloadables. All you do is click there. You get immediate access to all of our amazing resources that are complimentary for you in your recovery journey from any type of abuse or trauma that you have experienced. Complimentary, just to thank you for being one of our amazing survivor subscribers or loyal listeners or watchers.
Yeah,
And this is the part where I just hand it right over to Bobby, and we're going to dig into content, but I did just want to welcome everyone.
absolutely. And just to remind you again to stick with us throughout the month, because we are going to have the Survivor a Day stories on the website. We're going to have links and resources for you on the website, and then we're also hoping to post a video a day, an educational video talking about some element of shame or recovery for survivors of any kind of trauma, whether that's domestic abuse, childhood abuse, sexual, verbal, emotional, as Athena and I have talked about. It rarely comes in just one color. So often if you're a survivor of sexual abuse as a child, it came with neglect or verbal abuse or emotional abuse, sometimes physical abuse. So,
or domestic violence.
yes, domestic violence. And one of the things we'll talk about tonight a little bit is re-victimization. And unfortunately, when I deal with trauma survivors, domestic violence survivors, often if I go back to their childhood, we'll find that they were a victim of childhood abuse. And so we'll talk a little bit tonight about how shame plays a role in that. And it was very interesting last night when we were talking in Twitter chat about how people brought that up. And just time and time again about how shame makes you susceptible to re-victimization. So let's look at that PDF.
Yes.
Let me hit the share button here.
Screen share.
There it is. Okay, let me bring it down. Can you see it?
I see it now. Good job.
Okay, okay. One of the things that I tell people, and that I know that Athena and I both strongly believe, is that shame is a universal after effect of abuse. Whether it's sexual abuse, verbal abuse, any kind of abuse, whether it's as a child or as an adult, you're going to get shame. And that it is one of the most, if not the most devastating after effect, because shame is what I call corrosive, meaning that it gets into you, it sinks down into your pores, it gets to the very core of you, and it's like acid. It starts to eat things away. And one of the things that it eats away like crazy is our self-esteem and our self-worth. And that's one of the core issues that as abuse survivors we then have to deal with in our recovery, is recovering our self-worth, believing that we're worthy, that we're lovable. But it's hard to do that unless you have kicked shame to the curb. And so what you want to do, one of the first things we always try and do with trauma survivors is get rid of some of the shame. Because until you get rid of some of the shame, it's really, really hard to do any good work in recovery.
Yeah, definitely.
And
we're just here to tell you that there is hope, and that it's possible
absolutely.
for you to live a life that is free from shame. That
Absolutely.
was the basis of Brené Brown's studies and research that she did for so many years, is to show people that there is a way to live a life that has very little to no shame in it, and that's what she calls a wholehearted life.
Yes, exactly. And so I went through here on the one page, and you'll see that I just went through and quoted, I looked up shame to see what the definition was. And I got everything from a painful mixture of self-hate and dishonor, an emotion which the self-esteem is, in which the self-esteem is defective. Okay, there's that lack of self-worth. It's my fault. I did something wrong. There's something wrong with me. I'm bad. Then you see a negative, painful social emotion, which I thought was interesting, a social emotion. I've never seen emotions classified as social or non-social, that results from comparison of the self's actions with the self's standards. Now that's a pretty complex thing if you're dealing with childhood abuse, because I don't know that your brain is able to make those comparisons. But certainly, as an adult, we can go, wait a minute, I know I shouldn't be letting this person abuse me, but I am, and so there's something wrong with me. I'm bad, I'm weak, I'm not standing up, I should be braver, I should be more courageous, yada, yada, yada. We could spend hours talking about the reasons why these things happen. But
it happens a lot in the faith community as well, Bobby. Remember we discussed this a couple weeks
Good.
ago, as pertaining to faith traditions. Oftentimes, I will have people come up and they'll be requesting prayer for a certain situation in their life, and they have guilted themselves and somehow applied some sort of self-loathing onto themselves as to maybe their faith just isn't big enough. I
Yeah.
must not be praying enough. I must not be believing enough. My faith must not be big enough because I still have multiple sclerosis, or my child is still dying of
Mm.
leukemia, et cetera, et cetera. So it's often it's easier to take it on ourselves than it is to try to attach it to something cognitively.
Exactly. And that's a really good point. Um, and then the last one is that a painful emotion caused by a strong sense of guilt, embarrassment, unworthiness, or disgrace. And I thought that it was interesting that as you look through each one of them, there's a common denominator of the word pain. And the research that's out there shows us that psychic pain, emotional pain, is perceived in the brain the same as physical pain. Okay, so think about that for a minute. Your brain,
What's psychic pain? I've never heard of
emotional,
that.
the same as emotional pain.
Oh,
So
okay.
psychic meaning the psychological part of ourselves, not
Oh,
psychic as in I'll read your fortune.
like, hey, wait.
No, psychic meaning psychological, the psyche, psychiatric. And so if you can imagine, if someone is in physical pain, I mean, constant driving, horrific pain every day, we understand why they're disabled. We understand why they don't function well. But when someone is in constant emotional pain, and believe me when I tell you that shame is painful, we don't give them the same kind of grace. And we need to understand that shame can become debilitating. And the more shame that we feel, the more disabled we become. And the more disabled we become, guess what? The less functional we are in our daily lives. So, we start out born into this world, no shame. We're abused, shame. We're abused some more shame. We become teenagers, and we already feel shamed. We already feel pain. Someone victimizes again us. Oh, more shame. We grow up. We get into an abusive relationship. Oh, more shame. And by now, we're practically crippled by the amount of shame that we feel in our lives. And that takes us on to the next one, which is, it's interesting that the shame that we carry in each one of these situations doesn't really belong to us. It belongs to our abusers. But they used that shame as a weapon to silence us, to isolate us, and to make us feel less than. And by feeling those things, we were less likely to report what they did, or to tell someone else, or to stand up against them. And I noticed that...
I have an analogy, Bobby.
Yes, tell me.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, tell me. I want to hear.
Okay. Well, okay, so the wheels are turning like they often do whenever we have these talks, these discussions. If you're just tuning in, we're discussing shame, and this is the No More Shame broadcast. And I'm Athena Moberg, and this is Bobby Parrish, and we are trauma recovery coaches. So what you were just talking about, Bobby, about how shame was used to silence us.
Right.
Or inflict some sort of fear, right?
Right.
So here I am, and I'm going, oh, I know exactly what that sounds like. I have a very, very dear friend of mine who happens to be in the military, and I won't say which branch of the military, but they're in the military, and they're struggling with some things that are going on with themselves mentally and emotionally because of a military deployment.
Oh, that's so hard.
But there is, and it's heartbreaking. And I have a child that's in the military. I have a very big heart for veterans and for people who sacrifice to serve our country. And so this pings me pretty deep, actually. But there's a lot of shame and guilt and fear that's sort of inflicted upon the person that is struggling mentally and emotionally, in the military, that there's sort of a stigma attached to if they were to reach out for help with this mental and emotional struggle that they're having due to a military deployment.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, I'm proud to be an American, but, you know, shame on you, U.S. military. Sorry. They're afraid. They have this fear. The soldiers or airmen or Marines or people who are in the Coast Guard or what have you, they are shamed, or they have a fear in them that they are going to be treated differently or not promoted or somehow looked down upon if they reach out for help with something mental or emotional like PTSD that has to do with the military deployment. So there are just so many similarities here, Bobby, that I had to point it out.
There are.
So many similarities here.
There are. And it was interesting last night in chat. We have a decent mixture of men and women. And one of the men was talking about how even harder it is to speak up about shame when you're a man who has been sexually assaulted. Because not only do you have the issue of the shame of being sexually assaulted, but you have the shame that comes from the stigma of having been a man who was sexually assaulted. And you have all of that, you know, oh, men can't be sexually assaulted. He must have wanted it. How can you sexually assault a man? And it's a double whammy. Like you talked about in the military, not only are they dealing with the shame of having been in a traumatic situation, but now they have to deal with the shame of asking for help over something that was no fault of their own.
Yeah.
And they weren't weak, and they're not less than or lazy or faking it, but to ask for help.
Or seeking attention.
Exactly. You're malingering. Oh my, that's the big one in the psychological world. You see in somebody's file, I think they're malingering.
What does that buzzword mean, Bobby? Explain to some of our people who are not in the mental health field what malingering means.
Malingering means that they are faking their illness for the purpose of some kind of benefit, meaning they want attention, they want disability benefits, they want an excuse to be off work. Mal means bad, so they're lingering badly. When there's nothing wrong with them, they just need to pick themselves up and, you know, go on about their lives and, you know, suck it up.
It would be interesting to find out how often people diagnose someone or label them as malingering when they really do have something that they're struggling with truly, but it's just they're not able to discern that from their behaviors.
Right. Well, you know, when I first started getting treatment for my depression back in the very early 90s, I have what's called treatment-resistant depression. And it wasn't understood as much then as it is now. And that means that my depression does not respond well to treatment. And it is particularly difficult to find a combination of medications that work well with my depression. And when I find them, I try to stay with them because it's so hard. And it took a good 2.5 years to find a medication. And I got fired by several psychiatrists. I got told I was malingering. There were some really rough times in there because I wouldn't get better. As if, you know, I had the capacity to do that with my magic wand. And thankfully we understand it better now, but it's still very much, there's a shame attached to if you don't get better in the timetable that they have prescribed. And in the speed and the ease with which they would like you to get better. And like, you know, we need more shame.
Yeah. Gosh.
We don't need more shame. And it's interesting because shame, I talk about how trauma is cumulative, meaning that you can have one traumatic event when you're a child, and then you have another traumatic event, say, when you're in your teens, and they add up like a stack of books, like you're, you know, stacking books one on top of the other. It's not that you have one traumatic event, you deal with it, boom, it goes away. Nope, they add up, they stack up. Shame is the same way, it layers. And every layer of shame strengthens the layer underneath it. and then comes another layer, and it strengthens the layer underneath it. And so by
Like
the
nail polish.
like nail polish, yes, like nail polish, like paint on a wall. I mean, it
Yeah.
all just, it layers. And so by the time you have gotten, I mean, gosh, you know, we see sometimes Athena women don't come to us for help until they're in their 30s and 40s. And by
Or
that
50s
time,
or 60s. Remember
yeah,
that gal that was in her 60s and said that she had never felt like she had belonged ever before? This is her first time ever.
yes, that they have, they dealt with it, they have the shame from their abuse, and that because they didn't learn the thing they needed to learn when they were children that everybody else got to learn, they had difficulties with finances, they had difficulties with relationships, perhaps they had difficulties with drug abuse or substance abuse. They had a hard time holding a job, getting a good job. All those things. Shame, 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 shame. And by the time they come to us, by the time they seek help, they're just burdened,
Yeah.
crushed, you know, practically defeated by the amount of shame that they're carrying. And we have to get rid of that before we can really uncover what's underneath it and do the recovery work. And that's why we talk about time and time again. Shame needs to really be kicked to the curb, at least make a significant dent in it, get some cracks made in it so that we can see what's underneath it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's hard to get what's underneath it. In fact, it's not very fruitful at all. May as well just tackle that shame and work on it and get rid of some of it in order to do that good work that's underneath it.
Yeah.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And I thought it was just interesting last night. I have to mention that um, even talking about shame
Yeah.
openly, in the open,
Yes. Right.
almost like, I don't know if like any of you listeners or viewers are familiar with Harry Potter and the series, you know, that was written by J.K. Rowling, but there is, my son just went to Orlando for a vacation and got to go to Harry Potter Land, or
Oh, I
Harry
love
Potter World or whatever. So he was so excited. And there's the one whose name shall not be spoken of,
it. Okay.
which is, and his name is Voldemort. But like when they on top of it all, like as if it wasn't, as if he wasn't already the boogeyman that is like the big bad guy who is gonna, you know, get you, right?
Right.
No one's allowed to utter his name. The one whose name we shall not speak of. Like it's over and
Right.
over and over and over again, like, you know, compounded, right?
Yes.
But the reason why I'm making that correlation is last night during our Twitter chat, I noticed that as we had one of our very dear friends, a member of our survivor community, got to do a TED Talk. And she got to talk about her story of surviving abuse, sexual abuse. And she said that it was the most terrifying moment of her life, but it was the most freeing because she got to not have that weight, that silence any longer. Just speaking about it actually releases and diminishes the shame. And it can be very triggering. It's very delicate. It's like you got to walk that fine line and be built up and make sure that you're allowing yourself to be ministered to by the safe people that are around you. But I
Right.
noticed that just talking about shame last night, it really diminished a lot of shame. And the common thread last night during chat was that communities like ours, where people really understand what you're about or where you came from, is like the key to feeling healthy and living a life that's free from shame.
You bet. Because it allows you, I always like to have people start off telling their story within a safe community. Because when it's safe and you don't get that nasty, well, you should be over it by now. Or what's the matter, that happened years ago.
Yeah,
But
why didn't you say something back then? What's wrong with
right,
you? If
right,
it really happened, why didn't you tell somebody? They would have helped you.
right. Or gosh, that was 30 years ago. What's the problem?
Yeah, why are
You
you
know?
like, hello, you're supposed to press onward. You're supposed to leave the old behind and press onward. And you know, why let, you know, your past circumstances affect you today? That was then, this is now.
Yes.
Ugh.
And then there's the horrific victim mentality.
Oh
You must
yeah.
have a victim mentality.
You must just love to play the victim. Gosh, I remember someone said that to me back about 15 years ago. It was so hard. Oh my gosh.
Yes, that's a hard one. And so you start out in a safe community. You start out talking about it within another group of survivors. And if you're interested in that, let Athena and I know. We'll put up our contact information here in a bit because we have some private, secret Facebook groups that we can help funnel you into. So if you're interested in joining a support group online, secret, nobody knows that it's there, let us know and we'll help get you plugged in. But and then once you have your feet underneath you from working within a community, then you can move out. And I think we talk about that in our one page here. So let's go back and take a look at that one.
While you get the one page up, Bobby, I just wanted to mention to everyone that if you are interested in getting plugged into the Facebook communities, of course, it really is, it sounds, if you're not very super internet savvy, you know, a private secret Facebook group is a group that if you were to go on Facebook and actually search for it, the search results would come up empty. There would be nothing there.
Exactly.
And I think it's worth mentioning that it doesn't mean that, oh, well, I shouldn't be a member of that group because I'm not struggling with things like I used to, et cetera, like you've sort of arrived or something. But the neatest thing is that people that are in all stages of recovery are in a lot of our different groups, and they'll show up one day and be like, gosh, I haven't been around in so long. It's been like a month since I've came by and said hi to everyone, but I was just at the grocery store and I smelled something and it just sent me back and it triggered me and it was like I was 5 years old all over again. Has anybody else ever experienced this?
Yes.
And then, whew, like 30, 40 comments. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're not alone. That totally happened to me last Wednesday. You know, I mean, it's just awesome to be accepted and loved unconditionally, regardless of your warts or your past situations or your triggers or whatever. Everybody just loves you unconditionally. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And you know, one of the other good things with being within a community of survivors is that you get the chance to pay it forward. We've all, at one time or another within the community, been helped by someone else. And so when someone comes in and we can say, hey, I've been there. Here's a few strategies I tried if you're interested. When you reach out to someone else, when you help them advocate for themselves, it is so healing. So healing. So even if you're in a stage where you think you've done most of your work, and we still want you because you have tremendous value, and we can help you, you know, put some final pieces to your puzzle together, but we know that you can also help others. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We value you, whatever stage of your recovery that you're in. I just want to touch on this one last thing before we talk about tips and strategies, and you'll see it right up at the top of the page there. As we have more shame, our self-loathing increases, and it's almost like our shame trigger gets tripped really, really easily. So something that would not have triggered shame in us before now does, because we're so used to it. And so if someone comes into our lives, a predator, and the second they throw on the charm and, hey baby, why don't we, boom, there goes your shame trigger. And now it's almost like you've lost some of your recovery, and you're right back in that role of being capable of being abused. And that's why we get re-victimized.
And capable of being manipulated, because you fall under the ether. You fall under the ether a lot quicker because your shame-o-meter is damaged.
Yes.
It's like on overload.
You know, and it's interesting though too, because I know I talked with Athena about this one time, I think. I still experience shame when I go to the grocery store and I buy something that I think the cashier will look down upon me. My son had some friends over last weekend, and they had, you know, this long list of food that adolescent boys like to eat. And so I went to the grocery store, and I just had to cringe as I went through the checkout lane, because there I am with bags of candy and Coke and Coca-Cola and all sorts of junk food. And I'm thinking, the cashier is thinking, oh, no wonder she's so chubby. But there was no reason for me to think that. Because first of all, do I really need to think about what it is the cashier thinks about me? But because I have been so trained in my life to feel ashamed, my shame trigger gets flipped just like that. And it's something I have to work on. I have to work on reducing my shame so that when I get into normal everyday circumstances like that, I don't automatically feel that, niggling feeling of shame coming up the back of my neck.
Can we talk about this for just a moment, Bobby?
Sure.
Awesome. Well, if you're just tuning in, this is the No More Shame broadcast, and we're talking about shame. I'm Athena Moberg. This is Bobby Parrish. And you have a complimentary downloadable resource that you get just for listening, and all you have to do is log on to nomoreshameproject.com, nomoreshameproject.com, and there's a button that says downloadables, and all you do is click it, and you get the resource that we're referring back to with all of our show notes and everything that we're talking about today. So, Bobby, what you were just saying a moment ago about the whole grocery store thing, and they must be thinking, gosh, maybe that's why she's chubby, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have a question for you that I've never asked you before, and I'm sort of putting you on the spot, okay?
Okay.
But it's only because I'm going to follow it up with a story that I can relate to, and so I'm sort of like, I'm crossing boundaries here, but was shaming you for your appearance and your weight part of the abuse that happened to you when you were younger?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, mine too.
My appearance was very linked to what happened, very much so. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got, like we talked about before, Bobby, I know I've never asked you that before. I hope it's okay that I asked you on
Absolutely.
a live podcast. So, yeah, like I have been told my entire life how much I look just like my mother, and she's told me my whole life, well, you are my daughter. And, so there was always just sort of this thing, and like she's always just so perfectly groomed, and her hair's always perfect, her nails are perfect, and she's very, very, very much aware of her physical appearance. She doesn't ever, 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 ever leave the house without makeup on or anything like that. And I have just sort of adopted those behaviors, not because for any reason at all other than I just assumed that that is the way people did things, period. You don't ever leave the house unless you have your makeup on and your hair done and your nails and your legs are shaved and your toenails are painted and everything is perfect. And so whenever I don't have my legs shaved and my nails painted and my toenails are perfect and my makeup and my hair, I tend to shame myself because I just automatically adopted those personality traits and I attached those expectations on myself, which I'm thinking back right now and I'm going, and of course I'm doing this and I'm noticing I'm doing it, I'm shifting into a compassion mode, which is what I often do, but goodness gracious, that must have been exhausting for my poor mom. Like, I realize that there's a long list of emotions that I could be tapping into right now, but like, I know how exhausting that is. I've lived my life 40 years needing to look perfect every single day, and when I go anywhere, I have to make sure that I'm not a mess. If I go to the bank and I'm not like all put together nicely and, so well put together, then of course I'm shaming myself the whole time. And I was told by other family members, not my mother, I was told by other family members that I was fat and that I was ugly and I was clumsy and I was dumb and I was stupid. And so if I ever, ever, ever catch myself doing anything that could be construed as that's why she's fat, she's clumsy, she just spilled something, she just bumped into something, oh, heaven forbid I'm human and I spill something or bump into something,
right.
But I was never allowed to ever, ever do those things. I was not allowed to just spill things or bump into things or make mistakes ever because I would get in massive trouble. Seriously. That's a lot of stress.
It is.
So I do have the same shame triggers when I go to the grocery store. I always feel like I'm under a microscope or that someone's watching what it is that I'm buying, or I perhaps shouldn't purchase this. I should probably get the diet version, or is this organic, or is this perfect, 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 perfect?
Right,
You
right,
know what I mean?
right.
So we haven't even discussed this off the air, and I'm just like, whoo, resonating with everything that you just said. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay.
You know, and again, Athena and I are not even going to begin to pretend with you that we've arrived. We have so
No.
not arrived.
No.
And we don't want you to think that we have arrived. We'd like to, we do believe that we have the bulk of our recovery done. But both Athena and I come from some pretty significant trauma backgrounds. And we had some pretty significant trauma in our young adulthood. And so both of us have what's called complex PTSD. Some people, yes, they're going to recover. They're going to have a wonderful life. They're not going to have any after effects, and they're going to go on. That's not going to be the case for me. The after effects of what I went through are so significant that I likely will have issues I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. They're not going to be debilitating. They're not going to be disabling, but they're going to be there. And we see them in these little things sometimes, like, you know, going to the grocery store, or I get it sometimes when I go through the drive-through at McDonald's because my son wants this or that. And I think, oh, you know, my son's a teenager now, so eating just, you know, one of something doesn't work. And I cringe a little bit in my seat because I think, oh, what are they going to think? And so it's...
Yeah, so if you're listening to any of this and you're like, oh, me too, me too, me too, then, you know, you could just send us a tweet or an email or something. We're going to put up our contact information a little bit. If you're just tuning in and you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud or iHeartRadio or something, you can always just log on to nomoreshameproject.com and click downloadables, and you can have access to all of our free resources, and you could reach out to us. There's a little contact tab. There's a little sign-up area where you can subscribe if we want to send you a little newsletter, which we don't do a lot of that. We do the bulk of everything sort of on Google Plus, on these live Google Hangouts. We have a YouTube channel. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. But we don't really load your inbox with much unless we have something important to say. So, but we're super glad you tuned in, and we're just discussing shame and how it shows up in everyone's life, whether it's in the drive-thru or the grocery store. And if you're experiencing shame because of any type of trauma or abuse that you've incurred in your life, whether it's domestic violence, why'd you stay, why didn't you leave, or child abuse, how come you didn't reach out, how come you didn't tell someone, they would have helped you, or if you just have shame on top of shame, you're among friends. There are thousands of us that are out there, and I'm just letting you know that you're in a community of people that are going to love you unconditionally. And right now, we are about ready to pop up on the screen. If you're listening, go find the YouTube video and go to about 50%, like right halfway through, and you'll find what we're going to put up right now, which is tips and strategies for how to kick shame to the curb.
That's right.
And there is a fun little acronym that we have so that you can, the way you can remember it is you want to dress for success, or you want to dress for success. You want to have success over shame. So the acronym that we have for the tips and strategies is DRESS, and we're going to go through each letter right now, and it will be easy for you to remember these tips and strategies on how to attack and diminish shame in your life and live a wholehearted life, as Brené Brown always says.
There we go.
Take it away, Bobby.
The first one is demystify your abuse, and that means to take some ideas, take some time to sort out what happened and a little bit of why, what motivated your perpetrators. Sometimes it's as easy as looking at your family tree and saying, okay, my father was horrifically abused by his father, so he did what he knew to me. Oh, my mother was narcissistic, and that's why everything was about her, and she used to smack me whenever I did something that made her feel badly. Or it helps, because when something is a mystery to us, it has power. And you have to strip the power away from it in order to understand it and then take away some of that shame. So the first thing is to demystify your abuse. Spend some time with a safe person, spend some time with a therapist, a coach, and sit down and try and figure out what happened within your family of origin to either if your abuser was part of your family of origin, or what happened within your family of origin that they weren't protecting you or watching out for you or helping you stand up and come forward and speak your piece at that time. So take a look at it. Go back, re-examine it. As I tell my clients, put your anthropologist hat on and look at it in kind of a detached way and see if you can strip some of the shame away by stripping away some of the power. Okay, and the second one is recognize. So we did D, demystify. R is recognize. Recognize that our shame doesn't belong to us, but it belongs to our abusers. And last night in chat, I think it was Pepper that said this. Was it Pepper or was it, I think
You
it was
know who this was? It was Josie.
Oh, okay, it was TED Talk Josie. Yes.
Yep, it was Josie who just did the
Okay.
TED Talk. Return to sender.
That's right. Send that shame back where it belongs. Even if you know, do it mentally or whatever it is that you do. Even if they refuse to accept it, that doesn't mean that it belongs to you. So return it to sender. I love these little phrases that our community of survivors come up with. Last week we were talking about, Kimmy was talking about, don't let your abuser live rent-free in your head, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. That's one of my favorites.
Okay, so here we go with the shame. Return to center. Put that stamp on it. Just write, no longer lives at this address or whatever. Boom, go back. Okay, so we have demystify, recognize, and the E is empower. So empower yourself to claim the good things that you are and that you do. Remember that shame leaves us feeling unworthy. It leaves us feeling flawed, unlovable. We're never going to do anything good. We're never going to be deserving of anything good. We've got to go in and build up our self-esteem consciously. We have to consciously do that. And we talked about this, I'm not sure whether it was last week or the week before, but recently we talked about how you can't, to change something from bad to good, you don't go in and you excise the bad. Instead, you build up the good. So don't concentrate as much as going in and digging out the bad self-esteem. Instead, build up the good self-esteem. And so eventually that pile of good becomes so high that the whole of the badness, whole, H-O-L-E, is just negligible in comparison.
Yeah. And it's a good thing for you to practice as a trauma survivor of, we're going to get down to this at the bottom. We've already done DRE, and then we still have SS for the word dress, the acronym here, to get these, the shame away. A good thing to do is I often will enlist a safe person, and I'll say, I think what I need today is I think I need you to help me build up my good pile.
There you go.
Yeah, it is important to do that. Empower yourself. Be reminded of the good things that you're doing, some wins that you've had, whatever wins they are, a to-do list or someone you reached out to, someone you helped. Empower yourself. Affirmations. Speak words of life into your life, and make sure you have positive self-talk going on, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's your Bible or a devotional or a book or meditation. Empower. It's very important to empower yourself and not allow that power to be stripped away from you.
And Athena said a good thing. Sometimes we can't do this for ourselves. It's just we're in a frame of mind, we're in a place where we can't, and that's okay. So you go to someone, a safe person. If you're in one of our support groups, you say, hey guys, I am just having a knockdown day. I need somebody to remind me of what's good about me, and I can tell you without any doubt that they will line up to tell you the good things about you.
Yep, and there's no shame in that. I mean, I realize we're discussing shame here, and it can be a very shame-triggering thing to be so in a place where you just can't get out of that funk and you're sort of stuck. You have to, at that moment, when you feel yourself spinning, you feel yourself stuck, it's important to go, you know what? I'm going to stop right now and I'm going to reach out and I'm going to let people know this is where I'm at right now, and I just need you to help me for just a minute to get unstuck. And I really just need to be reminded of something good about myself right now. I'm being flooded with shame, or I'm just feeling stuck or whatever.
Right.
And there are so many, I don't even know how many people we have in that group now, but there are so many people that will just line up and just love on you. I mean, just they don't even know you, and they just can't wait to just love on you.
You know, it reminds me of, I don't know if you ever did this when you were in school, when you were a kid, Athena, but I did it at school, and I know my son has done it, that like towards one of the last days of school, they will tape a piece of paper to the back of the kids' shirts, and everybody gets a pen, and then they go around and they write something good on each other's paper. And so you do it, one good thing you write on everybody's piece of paper. So by the end, you have like 22 things that people think are good about you written on your paper. And it's on the back of you so that you can, you know, obviously write from the front. And two, so that the people aren't faced with having you watch them, you know, while you're writing something good. And my son always just loves it because he comes home with this piece of paper filled with cool things that people have said about him, and it's tangible. It's a piece of paper right in his hands. And so, you know, that's another joy about it being an online support group, because people are writing things, and they're right there in front of your face, and you can't pretend you didn't see them. You can't pretend you didn't hear them. They're there, and guess what? They're not going away. The next day they're going to be there. The next day they're going to be there. A week from now, when you've forgotten, you go back, you see the thread, they're still there. Cool thing.
It's very cool. I think we should have that in one of our groups. Perhaps our coaching group, Bobby. Perhaps
yes.
we could have that sort of a positive affirmation train or something.
Right. Yes, yes. Towards the end of it, after everyone's gotten to know each other a little bit, I think that would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so S, we did demystify, recognize, empower. S, speaking our truth and telling our story. I'm sorry, but I think, I shouldn't say I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from. This is, in my opinion, the most powerful way to evict shame from our lives. To stand up and speak your truth and tell your story. Because shame, the power of shame is isolation. And the power of shame is diminishing us. It diminishes us, makes us feel small, it makes us feel unworthy. When you stand up and say, this is what happened to me, you instantly peel back several layers of the shame. And we recognize that you don't want to start out by doing this with people who aren't safe. And so come into one of our...
That's a huge part right there, Bobby, that I just want to bring up.
Yeah.
I made the mistake when I actually was starting to have memories, and I decided that I was going to start reaching out and helping other survivors. My business had taken some turns, and real briefly, I'll just tell you a little bit about how this showed up in my life, and that is that I had started my business. I was working with businesses here on the island I live on. And then I realized that a lot of the people that I enjoyed working with the most were other single moms. And I had a lot to share. I had a lot of knowledge and practical wisdom on how to raise a child by yourself and have that child love you and not hate you, and contribute to society and be respectful and kind and loving and amazing just by pouring into him. And just, my son is to this day one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met in my life. And so I found, I'm able to share my wisdom with these other single moms. Awesome. Well, then turns out that there were very few that actually had time for that because they were too busy being a single mom. And so I found myself in the survivor community. Well, prior to remembering all of my abuse, which it still floods on a regular basis, I'll have memories, new memories. I'm going through a bout of sleeplessness right now because I'm having all these nightmares from my childhood, and they're just flooding. So I was sharing my story, someone would ask me, how are you doing? And it was someone that I knew rather well. Well, not someone that I know rather well that knows my background.
Right.
And I would share with them, I was sort of struggling with a couple of things, some memories that I was having, and they immediately cut me off and were like, well, that was like 30 years ago. Like, come on, like, live in the present, live in the now, carpe diem, what's your problem? Come on. I mean, really? Like, gosh, I just see you, you're out there and you're just doing so many good things. Don't let this hold you up. Don't even think about that. Just leave it back there where it belongs. And I was like, oh, I must be doing this wrong. Okay, well, maybe I should go back to working with these single moms because I guess that is something that I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, no, I'm not a single mom anymore. Well, maybe I could help these. Well, these businesses don't want my help because they just don't even see the value. Well, gosh, I must not be able to do anything. And so I felt very defeated because when I first started to share my story, it was with people who didn't really care and they had no frame of reference and they lacked the compassion or the scope or the perspective to deal with someone who has survived the level of horrific trauma and abuse and torture and crazy stuff that I've been through. And I didn't know. I just thought, oh, well, you know, they're asking me how I'm doing, and I just got shut down. I got, you know, completely dismissed as though I got dismissed as though I were invisible. Like, let's not talk to her because she's going to be the one that talks about something that we don't want to talk about. So we'll just pretend that she's not there. We won't invite her. We won't talk to her. And so that was more of a shame trigger for me. I was like, oh my gosh.
Right. Right.
So as we go through these acronyms, the DRESS, to dress for success, so that you kick shame to the curb. The first S about sharing our story and standing tall and getting a safe person. Safe person is the key S there. Make sure you have a safe person. Like, enlist a safe person. They have to be safe. If you don't have a safe person, contact Bobby or myself, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we'll get you plugged into a community, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is. We will get you plugged in because that safe community is an essential place for you to practice before you're ready to speak in public. So the last one is stand tall in the face of shame by employing a safe person or support team. And the last piece of this is to be prepared. And we talked about this a lot last night in chat. Be prepared for backlash from your abuser and their family or your family if you decide to tell your story publicly. You might also receive negative feedback from some friends, family, and community, like Athena was just talking about. Be prepared to establish and hold strong boundaries. Enlist a support team to help you navigate the backlash. So don't try and do all of this on your own. No. Be prepared for some backlash and set your boundaries. Last night we had a lot of people talking about how they were either ostracized by their family after they talked about their abuse, or they chose to distance themselves from their family after they talked about their abuse because their family was so negative in their response. Why are you talking about that? Why are you telling such horrible things about, you know, Aunt so-and-so or Uncle so-and-so, you know, to just be quiet. That's a family matter. We don't talk about those things. Whatever it is.
We don't want to air our dirty laundry.
There you go. There you go.
I was told, remember I told you earlier today, remember off the air, I was talking about how I was told my whole life that I was ungrateful.
Yes.
You are just so ungrateful. If I would mention anything like, you know, I was made to work outside for hours and hours and hours with like no water and no food, and I would get sunburned. I mean, crazy. If I would be like complain about like that type of treatment, or like the food smelling funny or tasting funny, or if I would mention, or if I didn't have proper clothing to wear, and my dad would spend money that he didn't really have to like make sure that I had proper clothing, and if I didn't, you know, what if I wasn't over the top acting exactly the way they wanted me to act, I was just an ungrateful little brat is what they would call me. I was an ungrateful brat. And so I believed that about myself my whole life because that's what I was told, you know. I might be so ungrateful. And that's just not true. It's just not.
No. No. You don't have to be grateful for the only food that you're given is filled with maggots. You don't have to be grateful that the only clothes you have to wear is one outfit that's ripped and torn and doesn't fit. You don't have to be grateful for those things.
But I should have been. You should just be grateful. You didn't grow up the way I grew up. You should be grateful.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. We've heard that one. Let's put up our contact information real quick here.
Hey, Bobby, really quick. Let's just remind everybody that the tips that they have to kick shame to the curb are an acronym that's spelled DRESS.
That's right.
Whatever you do to associate that, it's whether it's put on a dress or dress for success or whatever.
Right.
DRESS. There you are. You want to read it to them, Bobby? Just the words, the acronym.
Demystify your abuse. Recognize that our shame doesn't belong to us. Empower yourself to claim good things. Speak your truth. And stand tall in the face of shame by employing a safe person. There we go.
Awesome.
There we go. Okay. Let's move on to the next. Let's put our contact information up here. Let's see. There we go. Yay. Okay. And this is how you can connect with us. And I'm going to read this out because if you're listening to us on podcast, you obviously can't see the graphic that's up. So let me read it. You can connect with us on Twitter. I am Bobby Parrish at Truth is Hers. Athena is Athena Moberg at Athena Moberg. And then you can reach both of us together. Now, we changed this, didn't we? It's still the NMS project, but isn't the first part different now?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
I don't think so. If you just type in the @ sign.
Yes,
I think
at NMS project. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. For email, BobbyLParrish@gmail.com, Athena at AthenaMoberg.com, and then you can reach us both under the heading of the No More Shame Project and No More Shame Project at gmail.com. On Facebook, we have the No More Shame Project Facebook page, and that's hashtag No More Shame. And I just want to point out that on that page is a button that Athena made for No More Shame November. And you can go on the Facebook page, right-click, steal it, and put it on your web page, use it as your avatar during November, and we especially want you to use it as your avatar on November 17th, because that's the date that our anthology comes out.
Even if you don't put it on there the whole month, but on the day that the anthology gets released and published, which is a group of survivor stories, nonfiction essays and poetry from our awesome, amazing survivor community, we would love it just to support those survivors that have the courage to speak up and publish their memoir, their story.
And then our websites, nomoreshameproject.com. That's where the downloadables are, pinnables, resources for you. And then my website is bobbyparrish.com, and Athena is at athenamoberg.com. Other ways to connect with us, again, there's tonight we do the Google Hangouts every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock Pacific time, and 9 o'clock Eastern, and 2 in the UK, 2 in the morning. And then our Twitter chat on Tuesday evenings, same time. To participate in those, use the hashtag #SexAbuseChat. Every week there's a different topic, but it's the same topic on Tuesday night and Wednesday night. So, and to know what the topic is, I start putting out tweets usually on Sunday. And it says, this is the topic that's going to be upcoming this next week, and join us. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Anything else, Athena, that I didn't say or we didn't do? Or
I don't think so. Put it on your calendar for the last weekend in June. If you live in the Pacific Northwest near Washington or Oregon, we are going to have a conference/retreat. There will be some incredible speakers that I've been reaching out to, and we want to make it as affordable as possible for this very first one. And just because we really, really, really want to make ourselves available to you as much as possible. And I'm trying to organize a book tour of sorts where we're going to do some talks during the month of June in 2015. I want to get together as many of the authors of the anthology as possible so that we can all get under one roof, even if it's just for one evening, and be able to share and talk and connect. And you know, this No More Shame project has really lit a fire in so many people's hearts. And if you know anyone who is a survivor of trauma or abuse, we just want to make ourselves available to you and invite you into our community of people that will love you unconditionally, and you will belong immediately. It's like day one, you belong. So I think those are the only things that we forgot, just that we're planning I'm going to be on the mainland. I live in Hawaii, but I will be on the mainland US, for the entire month of June of 2015. And God willing, I will have my book published in addition to my, I am a contributing author to the No More Shame Project Anthology Volume 1. Bobby and I are going to be holding a conference, the two of us together, hosting you in the Pacific Northwest, on the West Coast, somewhere around Seattle or Portland area, last weekend in June.
Yep. So we would love to connect with you. Reach out to us and help us celebrate No More Shame November.
Yeah, any support you can offer would be super appreciated. If you know anyone who is a survivor of abuse of any kind whatsoever, we would love to link your website up on our blog for the entire month of November. So reach out to us. I think that's it, Bobby. Did I forget anything?
That's it. No.
All right. Well, we just love you guys, and we're so happy that you're here, and we are here for you. You're the whole reason that we're doing any of this is because of you.
Okay, you guys. Have a great week. We will hopefully see you between now and then, but if not, we'll see you at Twitter Chat next week, and at the very least, we'll see you next week here for another Google Hangout.
Yeah, I think the topic is narcissistic parents. Okay, aloha, everyone.
Okay. Good night.